that's rendered a little weird. Okay. All right. My name is Brandon. I'm a physician by training, and I started Phrase really to solve what I saw as the biggest challenge kind of facing clinical medicine nowadays, and that's the fact that physicians now spend more time entering data into the electronic health record than they do seeing patients. You probably all have heard about this a lot or have experienced this yourself, and we know that this is the #1 driver of physician burnout. To give you a sense of the magnitude of the problem, physicians are spending up to $35,000 per year to hire a human medical scribe to solve this very problem. And so it's no surprise that this represents a big market opportunity. The North American transcription and scribe market is currently valued at $18 billion. And so our jump into this market to solve this problem is Phrase. It's an AI medical scribe that automatically completes the physician's documentation. This works by a two-step process. The first is a pre-visit text bot interaction with the patient that gathers initial intake data. The second step is in the exam room where the physician and the patient have their normal interaction. Phrase lives on the physician's smartphone, passively captures the conversation between the patient and the physician. Both of those pieces of information are then run through our pipeline, and then what's returned back to the physician is a first draft of their documentation. This is 100% autonomous, no human in the loop up to the time that the physician sees the first draft of their note. And with this, we're able to create a lot of value for physicians because we can save them 70% of their documentation time. So the typical urgent care note today typically takes somewhere between 7 and 9 minutes to complete. And with Phrase, we're currently right now at 2.5 minutes and looking to get down closer to 1.5 minute over the next year or so. And what we're, in addition to kind of creating value just for the physician, we create a lot of value for the system as well by aligning stakeholders. So the EMR fundamentally has left the provider and the patient out of the equation, is really focused on the administrator, and we bring that into focus. Pardon the rendering there, it's a little off. Our revenue model is based on a $495 monthly subscription fee per provider. And just to give you a sense of kind of what that translates into in ARR, at 5,000 customers, that's about $30 million in ARR. Our team brings together domain expertise across 3 buckets. The first is healthcare. Obviously, my background is as a physician, as is my co-founder, Logan. We bring 2 technical co-founders to the table that have been doing this for over 20 years, have successful exits, experience bringing HIPAA-compliant solutions to market, as well as a lot of business acumen. Chris Merritt, for example, has over 20 years of experience in digital health sales and marketing. And where we are to date, in terms of traction, we've raised about $300,000. We have our HIPAA-compliant product live in our first clinic. And the gap we have left to get over the next 6 to 9 months is really kind of de-risking the remainder of the technology and getting ready for scale. So that's finishing up our EHR integration, getting 1 large enterprise pilot on board, as well as 10 paying customers. And we have a lot of help to do this. So in addition to being in plug and play, our team is kind of co-located here in the Bay Area as well as in Minneapolis. So the other half of our team is focused on the Techstars UHC, first cohort that they've done that with. And so have a lot of help to be able to, 1, fundraise, and 2, bring on these enterprise customers. And then the last piece, obviously, is funding. So as I've said, for the current seed round, we've raised about $200,000, looking to bring another $300,000 to the table. And that's based on Techstars convertible note terms, which include a $3 million market cap, 20% discount, and 5% interest rate. Happy to answer any questions.
So, I really like where you're going with the $35,000 for a human scribe and $6,000 a year for this. But how intense and complicated is it to finish that last 30%? Because it might be medication changes. It's very convenient to have a scribe when you just say, go send the script, or hey, change this. They don't have to reread all their notes. It's a lot of input. But once it's done, then it's really nice.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot. How do you propose to get over that really high threshold for the doctor?
Yeah. So the question is essentially, how do we compete against a human scribe? So there are a number of limitations, actually, despite us thinking about the human as kind of the best solution. 1, there's a lot of turnover with those scribes. So they're constantly having to relearn. They're usually pre-medical students, so they go off, and you're often getting a new one. They probably don't work the same hours that a physician is working, so you don't necessarily have them all the time to begin with. I think the other piece of the equation is not every sector in healthcare can afford that $35,000 per year. So example, pediatrics is a lot different kind of economics than something like the surgical subspecialties. And so I think a lot of the specialties have been priced out of the market, and so we're able to kind of open up the market in ways that other people haven't. And I think a different way to think about it is we're kind of at this point, a 90-10 solution, right? So we do 90% of the functionality at 10% of the cost. And so I think really providers are wanting that functionality and are often priced out of it. And then the last piece is we're actively studying this, doing a trial in 20 patients to really get down and even more detailed information in terms of how long they're taking.
And how are you going to replicate and scale this? Because I like it, but the ophthalmologist has totally different ones than the psychiatrist to the orthopedic surgeon. I mean, there's got to be about 50 medical specialties that would be interested. What are you focusing on with your $6,000 and where? I mean, $6,000 a year. Who's your target? Is it primary care doctors? I mean, it's not going to be an ophthalmologist. It's not going to be an orthopedic surgeon. Who's your sweet spot?
Yeah, so generally we're thinking about kind of single problem visits, low complexity single problem visits. So initially urgent care first and foremost, and then kind of the what I think about are different vectors for delivering urgent care, whether that's emerging home health models, whether that's telehealth solutions. Those are essentially different ways of delivering care for the same 15 to 20 diagnoses.
And instead of doing hand-to-hand combat, trying to get these small hospitals, who are you targeting? Are you just going after like giant HMOs, or what's your market?
Yeah, so to really get the data, to demonstrate traction, to get that first foothold, that beachhead market, we're focused on smaller clinics, 5 to 15 physicians, something like that initially. But that's really where bringing in the relationships with Plug and Play, UHC, Techstars, we're already kind of having those conversations to set up a large pilot as well. So really kind of the foothold is those smaller clinics, but thinking longer term that really to win in this space, as Epic has demonstrated on the EHR side of things, you need those enterprise customers.
You got it. This goes up and down?
Yes.
Well, I want to say thank you, one, to Plug and Play, because they have been an incredible partner for what we're trying to do, and it's been an honor to be a part of the accelerator. Also, I'd like to say thank you to SOPE for bringing us, all of us here that have some interest in making medicine better. And I think ultimately, technology, the ability to create technologies to ultimately raise the human condition. If we can bring great ideas forward with great people, then great things will happen. That's our core contention. So I'd like to thank everyone else that is up here also. I know how it is as a startup. These are roller coaster rides, and some are highs and some are lows, and some days may be lower than others and other days higher, but that's what we have, and that's what we all chose to do. Steve Jobs said, it's the crazy ones that change the world. But to my mother's chagrin, I didn't become a doctor. I am Indian, but I'm not a doctor. And but what I did do is I became an entrepreneur. And one of my stories is that my mother was one of the pioneering cancer doctors. She had worked with Dr. Bernard Fisher long time ago, and I was a little boy watching her type breast cancer tumors in her time. And so that led me down this road by serendipity. Being raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I was able to be around a lot of the cutting edge AI early on in my life, along with this convergence of medicine. So our company is that. We are basically building AI algorithms to work into the computer vision space, and more particularly with brain cancer.
Use the keyboard.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Our team. Nothing really in life is done by individuals. And in my case, I'm very, very blessed and fortunate to have a group of great men around me, hailing from many different places. The Lawrence Berkeley Labs, the CERN Super Collider, Kellogg School of Business, Carnegie Mellon, Washington Jefferson, you name it. But the key piece to our team is this. We took a study from Google, And we saw what they did in the early days of what I would consider the pioneering AI, and took a lot of physicists and mathematicians and pointed them at a pointed problem, which was this idea of data aggregation and what does data mean. So that's what we did. We took physicists that spent their life in Newtonian physics. These gentlemen were actually the ones that built the null set that allowed for us to go forward and do a predictive model to where is a neutrino through the center of the Earth. And there's only been 8 that have ever been found. This one came through the center, and these guys were part of that team. We used that same logic and put that towards medicine, and more particularly brain cancer. Oops, sorry. These are obviously some of our milestones, and of course plug and plays at the top, and we're looking for many more. And this is what we're trying to do. Ultimately, we do have 5 opportunities. Brain cancer is our top priority, but I come from the world of medical device intervention. In a previous life, I was one of the first teams ever to join nickel titanium alloys. Along that allowed me to open up this siloed data within the American medical system. Much of the data is controlled within the research centers. We are trying to break that open. If you have a central paying system, which is the advantage, then you have data that's actually opened up and being ready to be used. These are our projects. So currently, on the left side, we're working with UCSF, and we're looking at T-cell intervention with the Parker Institute. And the idea being that there is not a lot of T-cell data, but we do know there's a pseudo-image that's transpired within a T-cell. And so that's actually the point where we actually think the interventions begin. And that's what we were being told by the doctors. Our second POC is with the Sutter Health Group, and we're looking at predicting time series data as it relates to sugars within women. And so that was brought to us through that. And our third one, this is actually very interesting to me because I actually know Dr. Kadali very well, but he had approached us about looking at valve thicknesses. The transaortic ventricle intersection is one of the pioneering heart therapies of modern medicine. He and Dr. Mosier are the top doctors in it, and they came to us looking for a way to look at the image of that valve. That valve could be thick for a lot of reasons: genetics, the genetic morphology. It could be a diabetic, hypertensive. Any way you can mitigate and know what the complications are before, that's what they're looking for. Silite is a diabetic retinopathy company. They've cleared FDA, and we are writing their AI. Our goal as a company our expertise is in AI algorithms, so we focus our energy on that and images.
1 minute.
Yes. 1 minute. Our last project is City of Hope, and of which we've had 3.6 million data sets. Of that, we were able to create a model. And this model went through the brain using a voxel analysis and picked out pieces. So most AIs today look at go and no-go. So we looked at dimensional data, and that's what makes us unique. What was done? Well, we trained it. We took 139 brains from the City of Hope. City of Hope has become a great partner, probably the second largest cancer set in the country. And we were able to build a neural network that can do this kind of work using a 31 by 31 voxel volume image to come up with a predictive model at a 0.6 dice score. What are we trying to do? Well, ultimately, AI algorithms are what everyone's trying to do here, but what we'd want to do ultimately is build a whole platform along with the AI algorithms. So today we'd license those algorithms out with continued partners. Using that, we'd want to get into the different areas, because I don't think it's data, and it's hardware, and it's algorithms. Those 3 linchpins are what hold this thing together. If you take all 3, then you have the markets. And that's us.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
So, being a neurologist, I get a first pick on the question. So,
Sure.
among all the neurological conditions where you can do MRI, volumetric analysis, like suppose, for example, just yesterday I was talking about how all the MRI I order for dementia, the report comes out as no stroke was seen, and there is no mention of dementia or atrophy. So why didn't you pick dementia or brain atrophy, and why did you pick more rare brain tumors?
Well, we go where the data took us, and the data took us, so we are in IRB within every one of those POC, as you know, as doctors know. City of Hope took the greatest approach. Dr. Michael Chen in the glioblastoma research that he was doing brought that forward. So that's where we got our first data sets, first volume of data sets, and that allowed us to go forward. We cleared IRB in 3 months, and now we're testing against that right now in this investigative protocol.
That's a very fast IRB to get in 3 months.
Rob,
You have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, please, go ahead.
If you buy any MRI machine right now from OG and Philips, they now have an option to buy a MRI recognition software from an Israeli company as options to buy. So that field already have a mutual provider right now from Israel. Just to let you know.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
As far as I know, there's a existing company in Israel. They're working with OG and Philips on the brain tumor recognition stuff right now. Production with it. Buy this option MRI package from OG and Philips.
Well, thanks to Plug and Play, we have someone also very similar at that level that,
Yeah, but they come with the machine.
right, we're going to be coming off the machine too. Well, I mean, there are about 10,000 AI scientists in the world. That's what we estimate. Of that, there are people that need to be able to, and this is where we need the money. You have to be able to use DICOM data, and a lot of it's garbage. Has to be, you're only as good as the data going in and what you can write against those models, right? So within that world, we're trying to drive towards these AI scientists. I took the contention, epidemiologists, statisticians, and physicists are where we need to point today. But in that thinking is the idea of how do you add this and augment in the modern machines, right? And so all those companies are building that type of work, and Plug and Play has a few that are dealing with it. There's still an aggregate of not having the talent. And teams like us and a lot of these guys here, we're hungry. So we're jumping ahead, obviously, and taking risks that they wouldn't take.
Can you tell us your business model and your idea of funding? I don't understand. So you are building AI tools and doing the analytics for this company, doing diabetes, cardiac, tumor, City of Hope. Okay, where do you make money and where does the investor get their return?
The investor gets the return because we're going to set up a license model using the AI algorithms that are dictated by our data sets. That AI tool that I just showed you in the brain is within 6 months of completion going into pilot. Luckily for us, also because of Plug and Play, we're talking to one of the second largest data sets in the country with a full pilot to go through there, which we expect to happen very shortly. We've been selected into that group. But the idea is this: we write algorithms, we license the algorithms once they're tested through pilot, right? So we have a huge medical center that wants to do that. Once we get that buy-in, then we're going to put it out to everybody. That's part one. Part two would be, as we learned from our friends at Google, they have customized chips that run their AI. Ultimately, you want to take this into the hardware in time. If you have that, you control everything within your ecosystem. It's not just IP, because anyone can come behind any data set in this room, especially in America, because there's no exclusivity. So any guy could come in and work behind that. In other countries, it's not like that, but here it's that way. Given that setup, we'd want to control as much of that as possible. And the other part of that ecosystem is the data sets themselves.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm a Chief Medical Officer and a co-founder of Psychic Health. It's great to be here today to tell you more about how we help organizations improve their outcomes with our gamified digital therapeutics platform. So my background is that I'm a medical doctor, and I'm also here to tell you that we have a tsunami of adherence and lifestyle-related diseases upon us. I remember the tipping point for me when working at the hospital. I had a patient with cardiovascular disease that was getting worse under my care, and I was doing my job telling the patient, if you don't take your medication and improve your lifestyle, you will increase the likelihood of a heart attack by X% within Y years. Now, the patient nodded his head, but after the session, I looked outside the window, and I saw the patient lighting a cigarette. Now, you can imagine how I just sunk down in my seat, and I thought, this is hopeless. But then I realized that the patient was much more engaged with his smartphone than was ever with me. And I knew that I had to go digital, and that's why we created Sidekick, the patient's own little helper in the pocket. We have a B2B business model, and we focus on helping leading pharmaceutical companies and health insurers improve their financial performance through better adherence, improved health outcomes, increased market access, and we provide them with fine-grained data insights. Now, the secret behind our success is that on the surface it looks like a game where you get points and rewards for adherence. But under the hood, we have these coded behavioral triggers in data analytics that keep improved retention of the platform with each generation of it. And that's by building on our own unique database from over 30,000 patients with over 50 million data points that we use to train our AI to improve personalization and thereby maximize motivation. Now, the system has some behavioral reward mechanisms, like when patients finish their tasks, they earn water, which is then shared. Yep. Which is then donated to children in need through our charity partners. Now, what makes us unique is that Sidekick is built by healthcare for healthcare. And we have some amazing talent from the gaming and tech side, and some investors like the director of Google's Intelligent Assistant, who's been fantastic helping us shape the AI strategy. Now, so what we've done is that we have woven together behavioral science, clinical guidelines, and medication management in a way that's shown great promise. And here's a typical patient with a chronic condition that receives Sidekick, the ultimate engagement engine. And with an access code, you unlock condition-specific content. And then Sidekick learns about your comorbidities and feeds you the correct content modules that are relevant just for you. Now, we have done this in multiple successful pharma partnerships, and what our customers really like is this modular approach, which enables us to work across different therapeutic areas. Our customers also like our evidence base, like this randomized controlled trial where Sidekick users were 3 times more likely to reach the 5% weight loss goals, and they have had 30% better treatment adherence. They also like our industry-leading engagement metrics, engaging diverse populations, including the elderly. And here's another example of a study showing the intervention group, the patients with Sidekick, had dramatically lower long-term blood sugar levels. We have smart medication reminders. They are very popular, and people are not only using them, they're actually acting on them and to get the rewards. And we can measure the impact on adherence. So now coming to an end, these are very exciting times for my company. We're in the middle of a multinational scale-up with a top 3 pharma across therapeutic areas. We have completed successful proof of concept steps with multiple other amazing partners. And as a company, we have reached strong clinical validation, and we'll be exceeding our revenue target of $1.2 million this year, on track to earn more than $5 million next year with our current contracts, and are seeking more partnerships. And we're seeking a strategic investor to join our existing investors for a Series A round in Q1 2020. I'll be around to discuss more of those details. Thank you so much.
It sounds like I can tell my 80-year-old patient to go to Sidekick app instead of going to casino in Vegas and spend time and money, right? Okay, so Justin?
Well, I had the advantage of spending some time with you earlier today, so I got to ask a lot of questions already, but you can ask again. You know, you've built your business model currently around selling primarily to pharma. Could you talk a little bit more about your plan to move away from being something that just accompanies a drug prescription or anticipates a drug prescription and instead is around disease management for a payer?
Mm-hmm.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So with an effective tool like this, you have more than one route to go in terms of the commercialization and to secure distribution. We have been focusing on our pharma partnerships, and we have health insurers as customers as well. We did this because we have insights from the pharma world in our team, so to speak. We know how they operate, we know how effective they are when it comes to distribution, and we know what data to deliver to get these partnerships. But as you rightfully mentioned, there are other ways to do this. And with the rise of value-based care, we are in the process of collecting data, both ourselves and in partnerships, to collect the data to really show the impact of a digital therapeutic and take that data to the payer to get this reimbursed just like a regular drug. And we feel that even though pharma traditionally are, they manufacture traditional drugs, there is a lot going on within these organizations, looking into the future. So that's exciting.